Everyone should get a notification that we are now recording. All right, and I want to first welcome to the Overcoming Negative Thought Patterns Masterclass. My name is Paul Leviton, and this is a part of my coaching at the Healthy Happy Human Academy. So, first of all, I just want to say welcome. And thank you all for being here. Thank you for taking this time to sit here and learn with me. As we get started, I just want to make sure that you have a quiet place to listen. A pen and a paper would be great because I would like you to take notes, or obviously you can take notes on your computer as well, and about 90 minutes to focus. If you need to talk to me at any point, feel free to drop something in the chat box and I will see it pop up on the screen. If I lose connection or anything like that, let me know, because I'm assuming that you all can hear me, but there's always some technical issues when it comes to something like this. And now, without further ado, let's jump in. So just so you understand what's on the agenda for today, we're going to start with the science and the importance of self-talk. Self-talk is one of those terms that gets thrown around a lot, especially these days. Positivity, self-talk, what does it mean and why is it so key, especially for people whose goals are things like maybe weight loss, maybe dieting, maybe business? Understanding the importance of self-talk is imperative because we have to take it seriously. And it has direct implications for all of these things, no matter what your goal. If your goal is to change your life, self-talk is going to come into play. And because of that, we have to take it seriously. And people will only take it seriously if we understand how real and important it is. So from there, we're going to talk about the truth behind things like the secret, vision boards, and the power of positive thinking. And that directly stems from understanding the science and the importance of this stuff. Then we'll discuss how your negative thoughts are holding you back, specifically in terms of things like weight loss, like starting an exercise routine, like building business or working on your relationships. These are the main things that I work with clients on. And then we'll get into my simple 2-step solution that you can use literally starting today to stop your negative thoughts and change your life. Because as you'll see, as we get going, negative thoughts are pervasive. And when we can control them, it will have a direct impact on our life. And then we're going to end up with creating a specific action plan for you as an individual, because I really want you to be able to leave this masterclass taking direct action towards using this. I don't want you to just sit here for an hour and nod along and hear this stuff. I want you to learn it and I want you to implement it. Implementation is the most important step here, because without that, it doesn't really matter. If you're not implementing all of this stuff, then it's, all the education in the world is for naught if you aren't actually taking action with it and using it to better your life. And then when we wrap up, I'm just going to tell you a little bit more about what I have going on and ways that, if you want to continue working with or learning from me, that we can do that in the future. All right. So first thing I want to talk about, the science of self-talk. A study by Harvard psychologist Ellen Langer, in which she interviewed hotel maids who worked in a hotel in New York City. And part of the interview, they didn't tell them why they were interviewing them or what the interview was about, but part of the interview, they asked if they consider themselves to be physically active, to which the majority, 67% of them, told them that they did not. They did not think of themselves as being active, even though a hotel maid is actually far more active than the average American, right? The average, the recommended amount of exercise is, 30 minutes of non-vigorous exercise per day, or an hour and 30 minutes of vigorous exercise per week is something that a hotel maid probably gets within their first few hours of work. Meaning a lot of people talk about 10,000 steps. These women are getting that amount of exercise every day as a part of their job. They are walking up and down, they're changing bed sheets, they're doing stuff, they're being active. This is not a desk job, right? So the experimenter then broke up the maids into 2 groups, a test group and a control group. And the control group was not given any further intervention, while the test group was simply educated around exercise. They were educated around the things that exactly like I said, that, oh, did you know that you're actually getting something around 10,000 steps a day? And that's what most people consider a very vigorous day of exercise. Oh, did you know that actually changing the sheets and hauling laundry bags and things like that actually could be considered exercise? And they kind of educated them and put in their brain the seed that what they were doing was actually exercise. Okay. They didn't tell them to change anything about their daily routine. They didn't tell them to add exercise or change anything about their diet. They simply educated them that, hey, did you know that what you're already doing is actually exercise? And they came back a month later and tested these two groups of women. And what they found was, compared to the control group, compared to the group of women who had no intervention, compared to the group of women who had no intervention, these women had lower blood pressure, they had lost waist size, and they had lost more weight. So this is one of the first things I want you to start to understand, that this is real, right? There's a statement that psychologists use, which is, what's real in the body is real in the mind, meaning something like pain, a cut, something that we feel in the body, we feel in our brain everything goes through our brain. And then on the flip side of that is, what's real in the mind is real in the body. People know of a thing called phantom limb syndrome, right? Phantom limb is when someone loses their limb to like an amputation or something like that, and they continue to feel that limb, right? Someone who has their arm amputated will say that they still feel their hand, because the brain still knows that hand. So it can still feel it because it knows what it feels like. Our thoughts are powerful enough to create real physical change, right? These women, simply changing the knowledge of what they knew, changed the physiological effects of what they were doing on their body. Meaning, they were getting the same amount of steps, right? The control group and the test group were still getting the same amount of steps. There was no intervention. It wasn't like they changed what they were doing, but they lost more weight because their brain associated exercise with losing weight, with burning more calories, with other things like that. All right. So the brain is always looking for homeostasis. Homeostasis being a state of balance and equilibrium. So things, doesn't matter what they are, us, our environment, other people, life in general, are always taking us away from homeostasis. It's always taking us away from that state of perfect balance. And life is then a constant battle for us to find and maintain balance. So life is pushing us off balance. Our brain is trying to bring us back. And the way that our brain does this is through a system known as feedback loops. So a feedback loop is something that we have a sensor for something. It doesn't matter. Feedback loops can be around anything. So here we have a picture of the internal body temperature regulation, right? So if I am cold, then my body senses that I need to be warmed up. It will shiver. Shivering creates body heat, and my body temperature increases. Now, the sensor, the sensory organ, whatever it is in this sense, it's the temperature sensor in our brain has a specific temperature that we're supposed to maintain, 98.7 degrees, right? And that temperature is always checking, constantly, always. So again, if its body temperature is too high, then we're going to go and sweat, and that's going to cause our body temperature to drop. And then this is just a constant loop. So this is just going over and over. And this is how our brain knows how to regulate what's going on inside of us with what's going on in the outside environment. So in the body, homeostasis is pretty straightforward, right? There's a certain range of temperature. We know that what the body temperature is supposed to be. There's a heart rate that above or below is unideal. There's a blood pressure. There's vital stats that we have to remain either dead on, as with temperature, or within a range, right? And then again, above or below that, our body will be out of alignment, and there will be repercussions as feedback loops are set into place to restore homeostasis, right? An example, again, just like in the slide previous, if we're sick with a certain bacteria, our body raises our temperature to create a fever to sweat out or burn out that bacteria or that sickness. That's what a fever is, right? Is we're trying to get the pathogen, whatever it is, out of our body. So now our body temperature goes too high. So now we must sweat it out. That cools our temperature and the fever comes down. And then we check, are we still sick? Does the fever need to maintain? Do we still need more sweating? Do we need, what does our body need? And it's just a constant loop where we're always going through these checks and rechecks and checks and rechecks to see how can I get back towards equilibrium, homeostasis. All right. But now we have homeostasis in the body. We also have it in the brain. And in the brain, it's a bit more complicated. There's a lot that goes on to what a balanced brain would be. But for what we're going to talk about today, we have to think about homeostasis as a state of safety, meaning to be free from danger, to be free in a biological sense to continue our search to propagate, right? Meaning our biological imperative, and this is the imperative of every living creature, every animal, is to live long enough to have children to then pass on our genes. That is what we are literally at the deepest, most biological sense meant to do. So we need to be safe in order to have the ability to do that, right? We know about fight or flight. So if we're in a feeling of flight, meaning we're afraid or there's something that's messing up our homeostasis, then we are not in a safe space to seek that mate or whatever we need to do to propagate. So we are always looking for safety. And one of the ways that our brain looks for safety is via the truth, meaning it likes to be right. It doesn't like to be wrong. And it likes to be true and it doesn't like to lie. This is why we know that we don't like the feeling of lying, right? We like you when you have to tell a lie, you can tell when someone's lying because their physiology shifts, right? You can tell that you don't like someone who's a liar, right? We have a natural gut inclination to not lie. And a lot of this comes from the fact that we are born to be social animals. We were raised for generations and generations, for hundreds and thousands of years, and in tribes and hunter gatherers. So we had to have bred into us a form of trust. We had to know that we could trust the others in the tribe, and that's how we evolved to be the top of the food chain. So we have a actual biological imperative inside us to want to seek the truth, because I can trust someone who tells the truth and I cannot trust a liar, right? So that's why we get that gut feeling of like when we meet someone who is just kind of shady or something like that, we're like, I don't like that guy. But now this also applies to ourself, right? Meaning if I'm lying to myself, my brain doesn't like that, right? We know that when I'm saying like, okay, yeah, like I'm gonna get up and I'm gonna go to the gym tomorrow, but it's not gonna happen. We don't like that when it's just a lie. So what do? Well, we make excuses to make it the truth, right? So if I say I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna go to the gym tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and I just like, screw it, I'm not gonna go to the gym. That means I lied yesterday, which sometimes we might do. But in reality, what are we going to say? We're going to say, oh, well, I'm too busy. Oh, well, I'm too tired. Oh, well, I can't possibly because I have this thing coming up on Thursday. And if I'm too sore from my workout today, whatever the thing is, we are going to change distort the reality to make the other thing the truth, so that we don't have to feel that negative feeling around lying to ourselves or to others, right? So again, that's unsafe, right? So our brain wants to be safe. And when it's unsafe, and any reason, again, this is biologically or psychologically in our brain, there's an immediate alarm that goes off, and our brain will have to bring us back to equilibrium. That's always what's going to be. So that is, again, in the case of our brain, oh, I told a lie. How do I get back to balanced equilibrium? Oh, well, no, never mind. I'm just too tired. I'm just I can't go to the gym today. I'm too busy. Oh, that actually sounds true, because again, I am pretty busy. I can make that into a truth that my brain believes. Now I'm back at equilibrium. All right. But another thing we have to understand about these feedback loops is that if we are safe, then we must be rewarded. So if we are safe, then we must be rewarded so that our brain understands that this is an ideal circumstances. And then we will remember to come back to this state as much as possible. And this is where we get people talk about those happy chemicals like dopamine and things like that. And you start to understand addiction, because when something feels good, when we like something, our brain gives us a shot of happiness so that we can go, okay, that was good. That's the thing that I need to remember. That's something that I can come back to. So that's a positive reward that gets us in that feedback loop. I want something, I got it, I got the reward for it, I like that thing. So this is another study that I wanted to talk about, where scientists took a group of college students and they told them that what the study was comparing coffee to Adderall, right? And anyone will know, college students take Adderall to study for tests or something like that. They also drink coffee, and for those of you who don't understand coffee or Adderall, the coffee is a stimulant, a mild stimulant, and Adderall would be a much more potent stimulant. So what the scientists did was they divided these students into 3 separate groups. A control group, because there's always going to be a control group who got nothing. And then the 2 test groups were both given caffeine, meaning coffee, right? But what they were told was the first group was told they were given caffeine. The second group was told they were given the Adderall. So you have 2 groups given the same exact substance, but told different things. And what they wanted to do was track the physiological response. And what happened was very interesting if you don't understand how the brain works. What happened was, as you might be assuming at this point from this, what I'm getting at is that the kids who were given the caffeine but told it was Adderall had a more higher response that would be more in line with actually taking a higher stimulant than just the caffeine, right? So compared to the control group who didn't get anything, both of them, the caffeine group, the caffeine and the caffeine Adderall group were both stimulated. But compared to the caffeine group that was told it was caffeine, the group that took caffeine and was told it was Adderall had a much more stimulated effect, meaning their brain, thinking that it was Adderall, changed the physiological response. What normally would be just a caffeine response was actually increased because of the brain's thoughts of what it was taking in, right? So the fact that they had no Adderall in their system did not make a difference because the brain thought that it was there. So the way that we could think about this, we have to understand expectations, okay? So when there's an action, we get a result, and that creates an expectation, right? So for these college students, in the past, maybe they've taken Adderall. So maybe they had a test and they took Adderall before. They got the result of being super high energy, super stimulated, super jittery, whatever it is. And that created the expectation in their brain. So now their brain expects anytime I have Adderall that that is going to be the result, which then ends into an actual loop, a feedback loop, just like we had before. So the action of taking Adderall created the result of higher blood pressure, higher heart rate, whatever other things happen, which created the expectation. My brain now makes the connection. When I take Adderall, then these things happen. And that expectation can change the actual action, or in the case of things like drugs or things that are addictive, can force an action. But the point is that now, even when the action is changed, if I have the expectation, the result can still remain the same, right? So I take out that action of taking Adderall and replace it with taking caffeine, but because I have the expectation of Adderall, I still get the results, right? Going back to those hotel maids from earlier, the action was doing their daily chores, their daily work. The result was nothing. They didn't lose weight or gain weight. But then we changed the expectation. We educated them around what exercise really was. The action didn't change, but the result did, right? So now the expectation led to the action, which led to a different result. So all I'm trying to show you here is that at different points on this circle, we can have interventions, but all of them matter because what's real in the brain is real in the body. Okay. Our brain can change the physiological result of things that you may think the brain does not have control over. But it actually makes sense because everything comes down to hormones. Everything is regulated by the brain, right? So thinking about the Adderall, when you take Adderall, what Adderall does is it forces the brain to secrete certain hormones that then lead to a certain cascade of physiological responses. So all that's happening here is that the expectation replaces the Adderall. They got the caffeine, they had the expectation. Instead of now having to have Adderall, the expectation of, okay, this is what I'm supposed to get, that is the cue that causes my brain to then secrete those hormones that get me the result of the increased blood pressure, the increased heart rate, the hyperactivity, and whatever else. Here's another classic one. Is the myth of starvation mode. So anyone who's ever been on a diet before or read anything about diets or read anything about food or just been in the world knows that they talk about starvation mode a lot, right? They'll say like, oh, well, I stopped losing weight because I ate so little, right? And this is just not a thing, right? We can't, if we eat less calories than we burn, our body needs those calories. Meaning if I burn 1,500 calories and I eat 1,000, I need to get those 500 calories. So my body has to, because I can't survive without it, go into my fat stores and burn those extra 500 calories. So people say like, oh, well, I ate so little calories that my body stopped. Like it goes into starvation mode and you gain weight or something like that. That doesn't exist. But on the flip side of that, what you will have is people who start dieting so much and then they're eating 1,000 calories and then they're eating 800 calories and they're eating 700 calories and they're like, well, I'm not losing any weight. So how does that work if there's no starvation mode? And this is because, again, your brain will always adapt. And what it does in the case of starvation mode is it subconsciously changes your actions to match your level of calories. Meaning, say I was eating 1,500 calories and then I drop it down to 1,200. That's 300 less calories. So theoretically, I should be burning 300 more calories. But what my brain will do, because it's smart, is it will subconsciously just make me burn less calories. So I will stop making so many gestures with my hands. I might feel a little bit more tired and my workouts will be a little bit less intense. I might just not get up and go to the bathroom so many times. So I'm not taking as many steps. So it learns to actually dial down. So it's not that. And so now when I go from eating 1,500 calories to eating 1,200 calories, what ends up happening is my brain changes the amount of calories that I'm burning to now only match what I'm eating. So it's not that I'm eating less calories and I'm still burning more and not losing weight. It's that I'm literally burning less calories. But the reason I bring this up is because this shows, again, a direct correlation to what my brain is doing and subconsciously that is affecting my actual conscious work than the things that I'm doing in my day-to-day life. So, like, why does this matter? What do some hotel maids in New York City or random college kids taking Adderall have to do with self-talk? And really, it's everything, right? And the reason I started with this is because I want you to understand the power of the mind and the power of thoughts and understand that this is not pretend. This is not woo-woo stuff. Like when I feel like when I talk about mindset or self-talk a lot, people think that this is just like, okay, well, that's cool. But like, okay, like what does that really mean? But this is actual science. Again, and these studies have been replicated over and over and over again. I just highlighted a few, but there are many, many more that will show you that what you think has a direct, not just relationship, but causal relationship with the actual day-to-day activities of your body and in your body, meaning changing things like the hormones that you secrete when you take coffee instead of caffeine, changing things like the amount of fat you burn doing the same activity. So the three main mechanisms that we need to understand are, again, everything comes down to safety. Safety, 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 because our brain is always seeking safety. It will not do anything else until it feels safe, right? That's fight or flight. When we are in that state of flight, we can't do, or fight, either one. When we're in a state of fight or flight, we can't do anything else. We can't focus on other things. So in a physiological sense and from our bodies, like we understand that, okay, when my heart rate is super jacked up, I want to get my heart rate down. When I'm not getting enough sleep, I want to get more sleep. But we have to remember that this also goes to a mindset and self-talk thing. If I'm always having negative self-talk, if I'm always beating myself up with my words, if I'm always saying that I'm going to do one thing and then not doing it, right? I just said how the brain doesn't like when we lie. So if I'm always saying, okay, I'm going to start tomorrow, and then I never start tomorrow. Okay, like this is going to be the day that I finally start working on my business, and then I just make an excuse. It doesn't like that. And that's a state of unsafety. Okay. And we also have to understand the expectations and the feedback loops, right? And how having an expectation of something can change the actual outcome of the thing, right? When those hotel maids had no expectation of losing weight, they did the same routine and lost no weight. Once the expectation was put in place that, oh, this is actually exercise, and oh, that is calories burned, and if I burn calories, I could lose weight, that changed the way their brain used their calories, burned the fat, and did other things like that. And it changes the feedback loop. The expectation can change the action. The action can change the result. The result can change the expectation. At any place in this loop, one subtle change can change the entire outcome. And then the last thing is the subconscious behavior change, which is going back to the starvation mode. Because again, it's not that starvation mode is the thing, oh, because my brain just knows, oh, you're eating too little calories, we're just going to hold fat now. What happens is, again, you have this adjustment to your behavior subconsciously, meaning you think I'm doing all the same stuff, right? I'm eating 1,500 calories, I'm exercising every day, I'm not losing weight. So I keep the same exercise routine and I go to 1,000 calories, that means I should lose weight. But subconsciously, my brain changes the behavior to match that new lower level of calories. And this isn't a diet talk. This is just an example, but this is a reason why constantly lowering your calories all the time is not the most ideal way to lose weight, because your brain will just adjust, because your brain is smart. Because again, going back to safety, why would my brain adjust down to 1,000 calories? Well, if I'm burning 1,500 calories and I'm eating 1,000, that's an unsafe place to be in terms of what my brain understands. I'm literally starving, right? I need those 500 calories. So the easiest thing for it to do is to just reduce the amount of output that I have and then bring that level of calories that I actually burn down to meet it, because it's always seeking safety. That is the number one thing that our brain is always wants. Again, physically, mentally, whatever. It's always what it's looking for. All right. So now the truth, right? So then we have things like The Secret, or we have vision boards and the power of positive thinking. People always think about this stuff and they hear about it and it's like, oh, well, it's, that must be too good to be true. I just think about something and like, then it becomes true. Or what is having a whiteboard with a bunch of pictures on it going to do for me? And what's just thinking positively? How is that going to change my life? Like, just you're telling me because I'm a negative person that like I'm going to have a bad life, and if I was a positive person, then I would have a good life. And it's not that exact like that. It's not like, oh, if I just change my positive thinking and create a vision board, that everything's going to flip like a light switch. However, again, there are scientific reasons for why this stuff actually works and why I recommend things like this. So the reticular activating system, or the RAS, is a brain system that is one of those things that's kind of left in our brain from evolution, and was very highly important in our traverse up the food chain, right? A lot of these systems are left in place for millions, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of years of evolution. The reticular activating system is one of those things. And basically what the reticular activating system does is it helps to spot patterns. Right here, you see I have a picture of a green Subaru. My mom is a big Subaru lady. She loves her Subarus. And I remember a few years ago, she got a green Subaru just like this. And she said that she got it because she never saw a car like this before, that color. And she likes to be able to find her car in the parking lot and not be stuck with all the blacks and the reds and the blues. And then a few days after buying this car, she started noticing more green Subarus on the road. And she started saying, wow, I never saw this car before, and now I've seen it everywhere. And that's what the reticular activating system does. It teaches us to start noticing patterns that were already there, right? It's not actually true that there were no green Subarus before, and then after my mom bought the car, that now they were everywhere. Obviously, that's not really the case. 1 million people did not go out and buy the same car the day after my mom. What actually happened was my brain became more in tuned with that specific thing. Now, why would it do that? Again, evolutionarily, being able to spot patterns is a good thing, right? We need to remember, we need to see, if we see a berry bush, right? We're going back to hunter-gatherer times. I see a berry bush while I'm out on the savannah, or wherever the hell I was. And I eat the berry and it's sweet and it gives me calories and it gives me sugar and it gives me vitamins and minerals that I need. I want to remember what that berry bush looks like. And I want to be able, the next time I'm out on a different area where I'm hunting or something like that, or I'm getting water, I'm doing whatever things I do, I want to be able to notice that same berry bush in a different spot and go, oh, that's the berry bush from last time. That probably has good berries that are healthy for me. I'm going to go get those. So our brain gets cued into things that it already knows and feels that are of importance. So now we go back to, how do these things work? If we put these things into our brain, like a vision board, right? Something I want to accomplish, we can start to see more of those things. Now, again, this does not make these things exist, right? But what it does is it makes us more in tuned with maybe seeing these things, right? So a lot of people use vision boards for money. Okay, I might say I want to be a millionaire, and I put myself with a big CEO thing on my vision board. Obviously, seeing this is not going to make me into, that person. However, what will happen is my brain, via the reticular activating system, via other subconscious pathways, will start to look for and look towards instances of that thing more, because I am showing myself that it's important to me. So now I might notice a business opportunity that I otherwise would have overlooked, because I have constantly put that message into my brain of, oh, this is something that's important to me. I need to be on the lookout, right? I need to be on the lookout for something like this in case it pops up, in case I see that berry bush again, I need to know where it is. But now it's, in case I see an opportunity to be rich again, I need to know where it is. In cases I see the opportunity to exercise, right? So if someone wants to be fit and they have the person exercising and the Zumba lady and whatever, and that picture on their wall every single day, when we get to that opportunity of, I have the opportunity of watching another episode of Netflix, or the opportunity to go to YouTube and put on one of those exercise videos, my brain will know that it's looking for the healthy thing. It's looking for, oh, I want something that connects back to the thing on my vision board. And subtly, it will nudge us in that direction over time, right? This is not a one day fix, but over time, that is the direction that things will begin to take. So now we get to understand, we just went over how the power of positive thinking, right? So just by thinking positively, we start to input these things into our brain. We start to notice them more, right? I can subtly, subconsciously nudge myself towards an idea or an action that I want to take by consciously seeing it over and over, right? By seeing I will be successful over and over, I might maybe at times make the decisions or take the actions that a successful person would take. Multiply this by, 1,000 chances every day to do something. And, every time I see the vision board, these little percent chances can add up to a great amount of change over time. So now, again, if we flip that and we think about how can negative thoughts affect us, we can see that it can be very detrimental. Thoughts become things. Our thoughts are everything, right? Going back to the the hotel maid study from before, the intervention was the scientist, or the person conducting the experiment, told the maids, hey, did you know that what you're doing is actually exercise? And hey, did you know that what you're doing is actually more exercise than the average American gets? And hey, did you understand how calories work? And did you realize that when you get all these steps, you're actually burning X amount of calories and blah, 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 right? Imagine if that script was flipped. Imagine they told them, yeah, actually you're right. You aren't getting any exercise. It's actually pretty bad. The fact that you only just clean all day and that you don't go to the gym and that you don't do any Zumba class. And it's actually really detrimental to your heart health. And you're probably going to die 10 years earlier because of that. And they just went on and on and on. Theoretically, we can think what kind of effect that could have on someone, right? Not just now it goes doubly, because it would have the dual effect of, one, it would just be demotivating, right? People would say, what's the point? They would do this, and they would end up subconsciously doing less, right? So just like your brain will subconsciously alter your activities, if I'm telling you that what you're doing, there's no point, you will subconsciously start to do less of that thing. And then also theoretically, we could think that maybe the physiological process is just like the real maids ended up burning more fat when they were told what the exercise was. Maybe these maids would have stored more fat or burned less fat when they were told, a lie about how what they were doing is not exercise. Again, all of this stuff is theoretical, but we can see how it can either cascade up or it can cascade down. Right? Everything spirals. So it's either going forward or going back. Right? I say this a lot in my other trainings, is that, there is no staying the same here. We're either getting better or we're getting worse. And negative thoughts are directly pulling you away from whatever the greater goal is. So, and remember, next point here, that survival is our greatest imperative, right? And that is what our brain is locked into at all times. It is looking for safety. It is looking to make sure that we are able to survive long enough to reproduce. It is looking for shelter. It is looking for a sense of safety. It is looking for a sense of calm. And that leads us to the negativity bias. And remember, this is important when we think about the RAS, or the reticular activating system. So the negativity bias is simply a bias that our brains have, that all humans have, to pay more attention to negative things, right? Everyone can think of an example of a day where maybe you had got into an argument with someone, or someone cut you off in traffic, or any number of negative things happened that maybe lasted 5 minutes or 5 seconds. Again, someone cut you off in traffic and they flipped you the middle finger, and that lasted all of 5 to 10 seconds, but it ruined your entire day, right? You had a great day at work, and then, right before you were about to leave, someone made a snarky comment to you about something that you did, or the girl at the desk next to you said something, or something like that. It doesn't matter what the thing is, but the point is that one tiny thing, because it was negative, overpowered all of the other stuff that happened throughout your day, right? And again, there's a reason for this. There's a biological reason for this, and that is survival, right? Everything goes back to surviving in the Serengeti, or in the jungle when we were 100,000 years ago, hunter gatherers, and we had to be able to pay more attention to negative things, right? Because going back to that berry bush, if I'm out hunting and I find a berry bush, I want to remember where that berry bush is. But if I'm out hunting and next to the berry bush there's a rattlesnake that could bite me and kill me, it's much more important that I remember that than it is that I remember the berry bush. So biologically, we are more in tune with negative things, right? These negative things are easier to notice, and they also are more salient to us, meaning we can recall with a good amount of detail negative things, how you felt when you were in a negative situation, when you had a really bad experience, or a fight with a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you had a really confrontational showdown with a coworker or a boss. You can remember how it made you feel. You can remember the exact state you were in, how angry it made you. And this is because for hundreds and thousands of years, again, we needed this for survival. Now, we are not in a survival state anymore, but we still have this bias towards negative things. And now, again, if we remember the reticular activating system, and that we have a bias towards negative things, and that we start to notice things that have been top of mind to us, we are then programmed to notice negative things more, right? So because I focus on negative things, I notice negative things that confirm my bias, right? If I think the world sucks, I am going to continue to see things that make me think the world sucks. Yeah, that guy sucks. Oh, wow, he just cut her off in traffic. Oh, that lady's such a whatever, you know? The more we have this negativity, again, it spirals and spirals and spirals. So this is why it's so important for what we're talking about today to understand and to start to replace these negative thoughts with positive ones, because you can't have both, right? If I'm focused on negativity, I'm not focused on positivity. But if I'm focused on positivity, I'm not focused on negativity. So the next thing we have to understand, again, thoughts become things. We have different levels of thinking. We have our conscious, our preconscious, and our subconscious. The vast majority of the thoughts that we have on a day-to-day basis are subconscious. Something like 90 to 95% of what we do is subconscious, or the things we think are subconscious. And this goes back to, again, biological imperative number one, which is survive. Thinking in the way that we're doing right now, where I'm talking to you, where I'm reading, where I'm consciously making thoughts, is energetically expensive. Energetically expensive goes away from biological imperative number one, which is survive. Meaning our imperative to survive inherently means we want to save energy, right? This is why sitting around, laying around, doing absolutely nothing feels so good, because to our brain, it's like, ooh, this is good. I'm saving energy for when the lion attacks, right? I always want to be saving energy. The same reason why when I drop my calories because I want to lose weight, my brain is like, wait a minute, I need those calories. It doesn't want you to lose calories because it needs them for survival. So everything that we do comes back to trying to save energy. So our brain developed this place called the prefrontal cortex, which is what controls our lower level consciousness. And it does this in order to save energy and resources, right? If I have to think about less stuff consciously and I can just delegate those to my lower level thinking, I'll have more mental energy for when something happens that really deserves my full brain and full thinking. So again, this is great because it frees up our brain for a lot of things, which is theoretically good. But what it also does is it puts a lot of stuff into the subconscious where we don't have control of it. A lot of things like those negative thoughts, they're going off subconsciously over and over and over, and we don't even realize. And if it's subconscious, we don't have the chance to change it. So here you just see this example of the conscious mind, the preconscious, and then the unconscious. And it's just, you see what the conscious mind is, what we see, but it's a very, very small subsection of what the actual mind does. And most of what's happening is preconscious and then completely subconscious. So the conscious mind, I'll just read this because it explains it better than I can. This isn't my definition. Contains all of the thoughts, memories, feelings, and wishes of which we are aware at any given moment. This is the aspect of our mental processing that we can think and talk about rationally. This also includes our memory, which is not always a part of consciousness, but can be retrieved easily and brought into awareness, right? So these are things that I can control, I can think about. I can change the words that I'm speaking right now. That's conscious. If I'm thinking and closing my eyes about a red Corvette, and then I want to change to think about a green Subaru, that is also conscious. There's levels of that are happening at any given time. But for the most part, there's only 3 to 5, maybe 7 things tops that our conscious brain can really pay attention to, and pay deep attention. It gets down to like 2 or 3, meaning I'm talking, I'm moving my hands, I'm reading right now. That's about it, right? If someone were to come and start to have a conversation with me right now, I wouldn't be able to give it my full attention because my conscious mind is right here, right? Everything else, in terms of the way I'm sitting, in terms of the way I'm breathing, in terms of what I'm listening to, and where my attention is going, is all devoted to my lower level subconscious thinking in order to save energy. So we have the preconscious, which is anything that can be controlled by the conscious mind, but isn't. So going back to the example before on the previous slide, that's something like memory, right? So we have a lot of memories in our preconscious mind, but when they're not always in conscious thought right away. We can bring them up, right? There's like a little file cabinet we have. I can think about something. I can think, oh yeah, that was a good burger I had the other day. but it's not always in our conscious mind. And then we have the subconscious, which is everything else. It's our feelings, thoughts, urges, memories that are outside of conscious awareness. And a lot of this stuff, as it says here, are unacceptable or unpleasant, such as feelings of pain, anxiety, and conflict. Again, why do we want to do this? Why would our brain do this? Because pain, anxiety, conflict are the opposite of safety. We want to feel safe. So in order to let us feel that way, it kind of pushes that stuff down to our subconscious where it's not an active part of what we're thinking about. But that doesn't make it go away, right? So what we have to do if we want to control these things is actively try to make some of these subconscious things more conscious. Right? Again, subconscious is safe. It's where we save energy. It's energy inexpensive, right? If I had to think every time I had to breathe, if I had to consciously think, breathe, if I had to think every time I wanted to, again, get up and, move my hands like this, if I needed conscious thoughts, it would be far too energy expensive. Our brain actually burns the most calories pound for pound there's any organ in our body or our muscles, right? So our brain burns more calories thinking than anything else doing any of its jobs. It burns more calories than the heart or the muscles or anything else like that. So if I had to think so much, it would be too expensive. So our brain wants to delegate as much as possible to the subconscious to save that precious energy. The more it can make subconscious, the happier it is, the more energy that it has for later. So when we combine these things, right, we have this negativity bias, right? The negativity bias, as I said, is this biological imperative for us to pay more closer attention to negative things, right? One, to be able to notice them faster, and two, for us to hold it in our brain more vividly and saliently for longer and to be able to recall it better, right? Again, say you get home at the long day of work and your husband or girlfriend or boyfriend or wife goes, "Oh, honey, how was work today?" You had 8 hours there, but the one thing that you're going to say is, "Oh, Susan said this," or, "Oh, that asshole Gary was such a dick," because that's the first thing that's going to come to the top of mind, right? We pay more attention to what can harm us than to what can help us, right? What's more important for me to understand? Where's that crocodile or where's that berry bush? The berry might be delicious, right? A beehive full of honey might be an awesome thing if I found it and I got to eat the honey out of it. But now I need to remember, oh, wait, when I went to go get that honey, I got stung by a bunch of bees. That's dangerous. So I need that negative thing to override the positive. And now again, safety. Safety, I can't keep coming back to this because this is what everything is about. I need my brain to understand that I'm safe. And safety comes back to being right. It doesn't like lying. It likes to be telling the truth. And yet we have this bias towards negativity. And we also delegate most thinking to lower levels for the sake of saving energy, for energy consumption. So when we combine all these things, right, what we start to see is that we are putting all of these thoughts into the subconscious where we are have been bred over thousands of years to pay more attention to negative things. And our safety is in confirming that the things we believe are true. So if we are looking for negative things, if we are thinking negative things, then what our brain will cause us to believe is that things are negative and the world is negative and I can't and things suck and there's no point in trying and I can't stick to a diet and every time I work out it's too hard and why would I start a business because all businesses fail and all of these things because our brain is not going to every time take the time to evaluate each individual thought on a one-by-one basis. It needs its higher level thinking for other things. So it's just going to go subconscious, negative, boom. And we just get stuck in this loop of negativity over and over and over. So you can think of this just like we had the feedback loop before. We can think of this as a thought loop, right? We get an impulse, which leads to a thought, which leads to a response. So the impulse is anything that can cause an action. And that can be internal, like a thought, like I can have an impulse. I'm hungry right now. I want to go get food. Or it can be external, like my mom says, hey, can you go pick up the laundry or something like that? Anything that causes me to move in some way is an impulse. And then I have a thought. And the thought is my, you know, what immediately happens in my brain as a result of hearing that impulse. So if the impulse is, again, I feel a rumble in my stomach and I think I'm hungry, and then my thought can be, I really want McDonald's right now, but I have been on a diet for 3 weeks and I know I shouldn't. But then maybe my subconscious thought is, well, I'm not losing any weight. Well, I'm gonna fall off anyway. Well, screw it. And then the response taken is, I go get McDonald's. Or if my subconscious thoughts were positive, it might go a different direction. But we start to see how the impulse, the thought, the response dictate everything. And sometimes it's conscious, but sometimes it's subconscious. And both of those things matter. Right. So again, we go back. It's this. We saw this earlier. Was the action that led to the result, and that led to the expectation, and the expectation led to the action, and the new action led to the new result, which led to the expectation again. In this loop that goes on and on. And that kind of is the same thing here, right? We get this. We see the same loop. Impulse leads to thought, which leads to reaction, which leads to an impulse. And some of this is conscious. So the impulse is often conscious. Again, I realize that it's happening to me. Now, again, all of this can be switched because an impulse can be subconscious as well, right? But for the most part, the impulse is conscious. And the thought is usually subconscious because, again, like I said before, I could go get McDonald's. That was the thought. But the subconscious thought is all the self-talk that goes on underneath this that I don't realize. Like I said, that little conversation of, yeah, but I usually fail diets. Yeah, but it's been 3 weeks. I deserve something. I deserve a cool, a treat. Yeah, but I'm just going to mess up anyway. So what's the point? Yeah, but even if I stick to this diet, I'm probably not going to lose weight anyway. All of that stuff happens subconsciously. I'm not literally speaking these words out loud, but these are the thought patterns that my brain has been stuck in for so long, which then guide the reaction, right? Now, again, this action, reaction, thought can be conscious at times, but for the most part, for all the reasons I've alluded to already, this stuff happens at a subconscious level. So, well, before I get to that, so I just want to explain again the importance of this. So if we are going to change this stuff, what we are trying to do basically at the simplest level is to flip some of this. We are trying to take some of the stuff that's subconscious and make it conscious, right? So that's what, when I teach you in a few minutes, the actual process to do this, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to take that subconscious thought spiral that I just had, that, well, this is stupid. Well, I can't lose weight anyway. Well, this, well, this, well, this, well, this, well, this, and bring it up to a level of consciousness where I actually have control of it, because I don't have control over my subconscious right now. But what happens is, the more I control my conscious, it then becomes subconscious, because again, my brain wants to save energy. If I do something enough consciously, it will become a subconscious act, right? If I make a healthy choice enough consciously, eventually, subconsciously, I'll start to make this healthy choice as well, because my brain wants to save that all important energy through the decision-making process. All right, so just to recap. We're thinking all of the time, right? About, and this is an estimate, don't hold me to these numbers, but about 5% is a conscious thought, and about 95% of our day-to-day activities and everything we do is subconscious. So we have an evolutionary imperative. I call this biological imperative number 1, safety. Safety so that we can reproduce technically, but safety is the number 1 thing. And we are bred to notice negative things faster, and for those to remain more salient in our brain for longer times for the reasons of safety. If something seems like it can be a danger to us, we need to pay more attention to it. So if something gives us a negative feeling, we will think about that thing more. We will be able to access that area easier, which shows that we're fighting an uphill battle. When we're trying to replace negative with positive, it's not just as easy as, oh, well, let's think positively, right? Otherwise, I wouldn't be having to talk for over an hour on this already. You have to understand that this is an uphill battle that we're fighting for good reason, but it's not so simple because of all of these reasons that I've been outlining. All right. And now we also have to remember that our brain has the power to create real physiological response simply from our thoughts. Right now, again, this is not just like, oh, well, I'm thinking positive, so like I feel a little more positive. This is, I'm thinking positively, and literally my body is taking notice. Literally, my body is secreting more of the happy hormones that make my body feel good. Literally, my body is allowing me to sleep better so that I have more energy, so that I can take a more active role in whatever thing that I'm doing, right? So this is just what I want you thinking about when we think about the importance of all of this and why it's such a worthwhile endeavor to really take the time to figure out our negative thought patterns and try to replace them with the positive stuff that we're going to be working on. Before we get to that, I just want you to meet, this is one of my clients. This is Johnny. So Johnny, struggled with his weight for years, constant traditional yo-yo dieter, all the stuff, personal trainers. I went to Zumba. I do spin class. I would always start and stop. I would always, I've done keto and I started that I stopped. And, he said it, and one of the first sentences he said when we first talked to me was like, I just can't lose this weight. Like I gained weight when I was in my late 20s, and I've never tried to lose it. Never been able to lose it no matter what I've done. And he tried all the tactics, right? He learned more about diet. He knew about keto. He knew about intermittent fasting. He knew about this and that. He watched all the YouTube videos and the proper workout form. And he had all the common knowledge, but he couldn't get it to stick, right? He would try and then he would fail, and he would try a different thing and he would fail, and he would try, fail. We started working together. And then this is like 2 months later, like 6 weeks or something like that. And in that time, he was now on a diet that he enjoyed, a workout routine that he stuck to. He had ran, last we spoke, he's still a client of mine. Last we spoke, he had ran 10 miles straight and was training for a half marathon. He's already lost, 10 pounds in less than 2 months. And he was feeling much more motivated than ever. Okay. But the question is, what changed? And what we need to understand was that the difference was not a tactic in terms of a better workout. His mindset and his self-talk around what he was capable of changed. Meaning he started running, right? I just said he was training for a half marathon. He had known how to run forever. I did not teach him how to run, but he just is running more consistently. He started eating healthier, making better food choices, going out to dinner, but making better food choices when he was going out to dinner, eating at home, but making better food choices when he was eating at home. Again, nothing that I taught him. He knew how to do all this stuff before, right? All of those years where he struggled, he had already known how to do these things. There was nothing new about what I taught him that was like, oh, okay, now I know how to diet. Oh, now I know how to run. The only thing that was new to him was that he decided to take control of how he talked to himself and to show up mentally and not just try to force it physically without first addressing the mental. So question is now, how did he make this switch, right? How was I able to help Johnny change a thing that he had been trying to unsuccessfully change for literally a decade, right? And again, we didn't change his exercise. We didn't change his diet. We didn't change his routines. We didn't change his habits. What we changed was specifically his self-talk. Because if you go back to this slide, what was the first thing Johnny said to me? I just can't seem to lose this weight. I just can't do it. I've tried all the things. I just can't. I tried running. It didn't work for me. I tried that diet. It didn't work. Negative, negative, negative. All of these things were painting a picture to his subconscious mind. If you're saying, I can't stick to a diet, I've tried it all, it never works. I don't know why I do this. It's dumb anyway. It doesn't work. Oh, there's no way I can lose weight. Your brain is listening, and that will be the narrative it chooses to continue, right? It just makes sense. I just spent over almost an hour explaining how powerful your brain is. So if this is the story that I'm choosing to tell my brain, that is going to be the story that my brain continues to listen to. Okay. So just before we continue, I just understand when I say this, a lot of times people are like, oh, is it really so easy? Just change your thoughts. And no, it's not that easy. This is not a panacea. This is not a magic pill, a magic wand that's just going to fix everything. Like, oh, just change your thoughts, and now everything's different. This is a everyday over and over process. This is not like you're going to get off this masterclass and like, now it's all uphill from here. You have to work at this in the same way that you have to work out at the gym to make your muscles stronger. You have to work out your brain to make your brain and your mind stronger. But what this is going to do is give you a fighting chance, right? Because what happens is if you don't have this in place, you are committing to failure before you begin. Meaning, I can't guarantee your success. However, what will happen if you don't have a system or a strategy in place for your negative thoughts is you are guaranteeing your failure, right? So at least when you have a system where you're like, oh, wait, I understand the negative thinking that I'm going through and I have a way to counter that, you're at least giving yourself a fighting chance. Whereas before, you're just going to stay stuck in this cycle like Johnny was, where it's just like, well, I'm trying everything and I'm not getting it. And I'm trying and I'm not getting it. I'm trying and I'm not getting it. What eventually will lead to just quitting, because only an insane person is going to continue to try and try and try and fail and fail and fail. Eventually, they're just going to say, well, this is impossible, and you're going to quit. So that's where most people get to. They go, oh, well, I tried all the stuff and nothing worked. So they quit. They give up because they don't understand that the thing that is really holding them back is the negative thoughts, right? So here, finally, we come to the actual solution and what I'm prescribing to you to help you anytime you catch yourself, to snap yourself out of these negative thought processes and patterns and take control of your thoughts. And I call this just simply the P squared. It's a pattern interrupt paired with a power phrase. All right. So pattern interrupt, as I said before, everything that we're doing is habitual, subconscious, right? Our brain relegates this stuff to our lower level thinking. So this stuff becomes habitual, right? This is not stuff that we're thinking about outright. It's just stuff that happens below our conscious thinking. So often it happens in the way of like a feedback loop that I was showing you before. You have a trigger, then something, then a thought, and then a response. So in order to get out of this pattern, we have to break the loop, right? We have to have a pattern interrupt that will break that loop and allow us to insert a new habit into it. So the first thing we need to do is interrupt the pattern, right? This is a quote by Viktor Frankl, who was a famous psychologist who was in the Nazi concentration camps and is one of the greatest psychological thinkers of our time. Honestly, it's an amazing book that everyone should read. But he has a very quote I love that says, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. That power to choose is everything, right? So when we have a pattern interrupt, it gives us the space to pause. Because when we're in that feedback loop of someone cut me off in traffic, I get angry, I scream out, screw you. Like, it happens instantly, because again, subconsciously, it's not taking a lot of time to think. Our conscious thought is our logical thought where we have time to think. Our subconscious thought happens instantly and we don't think about it. So our pattern interrupt is meant to serve as a way for us to pause and give us space to think and bring that lower level illogical subconscious thinking and bring it up to a conscious level of thought, right? Our negative thoughts, everything we do, it thrive in our subconscious. So the way you win is by taking that subconscious and making it conscious. Like I was talking about before, flipping the script, right? So we need to interrupt and break that loop, interrupt the pattern to give us a pause and a fighting chance. So these are just two books I love, Atomic Habits and Tiny Habits. Definitely recommend anyone gets them. And most of what I teach about habits comes from a combination of these as well as other books. But a habit is a recurrent, often unconscious pattern of behavior. And the way we can build our own habits, there's a lot of different things that I talk about this a lot more in other courses that I do. I'm not going to this isn't a class on habits, but I just want you to understand habit stacking is where we take a pair of habit that we're trying to build with a habit that we're already doing. Right. So the example that I love is, I want to drink more water. So when I walk into the kitchen, I drink water. I will always walk into the kitchen every morning. So then I pair that habit that I'm already doing, walking into the kitchen, with drinking water, something like that. Then the rule of tiny habits means that if we want to build a habit, we need to make it so small that it's almost impossible not to do. And what we're talking about now in terms of thoughts fit that bill specifically, because I'm not talking about going to the gym. I'm not talking about waking up an hour earlier. I'm just literally thinking about changing your thoughts. So that's the tiniest habit that we can build. And then the last step we need to create a reward, meaning the reward is the expectation. Going back to that loop from before, the expectation that then gets us to do the action again. So we have an impulse, then we have reaction, and then we have an expectation that stems from that. So we can create the expectation by giving ourselves a reward. Now, a lot of times people think of this as a reward as like, oh, I'm going to have a cheat meal, or oh, I'm going to have a rest day after I work out. But this is not what we're talking about. The reward needs to be mental, and it needs to just be something that makes us feel good. So a reward in the sense that we're going to use it, and what I recommend is just things like affirmations, a positive thought, or a smile, things like that, because that makes us feel good. And it's something that we can do instantly, and it has no negative impact, right? So a cheat meal is like, oh, it's a reward, but that has a negative impact on us. So skipping a workout, or again, like whatever the thing is, going out drinking, or whatever the things that people tend to reward themselves with. Whereas instead, if I can just stack a habit, make it small, and then give myself a reward that I can do instantly in that moment, that's a formula for creating powerful habits. So the way we make this into a thing is it's a simple pattern interrupt power phrase. Yeah. So it's an if I, then I statement. If I catch myself doing blank, there's a habit I want to break, a pattern of negative thinking, then I will insert my power phrase affirmation. And that's a habit I want to build. It's a positive affirmation. It's a mantra. Okay. So that might be something like, if I catch myself thinking about skipping the gym, then I will repeat my affirmation of whatever it is around going to the gym. And I'll talk to you about this. So the if I is the pattern interrupt, right? If I is when I catch myself going into that negative spiral of something that I'm trying to break, right? So when I catch myself doing this, or thinking this, or going down this thought pattern, then I will, and I immediately snap that, right? Give myself a pause, and then I state my positive affirmation, which serves as the reward, right? Because the reward is that feeling of positivity and that good feeling that I get, that solidifies the statement and the expectation in my habit loop. So there's just a few rules for making your P squared statement, right? First is it must be present tense. These are things like I am, I do. They're not I will or I'll try. Okay. It must be linked directly to the goal at hand. So if my goal is around eating healthier, then my positive affirmation shouldn't be like, I am powerful. It should be literally about, I eat healthy because it nourishes my body. And then the last thing is it must evoke a positive emotion. So that these things only work if they mean something to you. Because again, your brain, going back to the beginning here, your brain knows when you're telling the truth, and it knows when you're lying, and it hates lying. So if you're just telling it bullshit because, oh, Paul told me to make an affirmation, that's not going to work. It has to be something that literally makes you feel good to say. Something that if it were true and you're going to make it true, will literally make you happy, because that is what serves as the reward that gives you that dopamine drip that then allows you to set the expectation and set this whole cascade of effects into motion. Okay. So one of my clients, Jamie, right? She wanted to be more diligent about tracking calories. And we had struggled with this every week. She would say, all right, I'm going to track my calories. I'm going to be better about it. I'm going to track my calories. I'm going to be better about it. But every week she would come back. She's like, I didn't really track my calories. I didn't really track my calories. What it got down to was that she said, she's like, oh, well, I get into these things of like, I miss, I forget to track one meal. And then I just say, well, what's the point? Or, I have something unhealthy and I don't want to track it. So I do this. And I'm like, but I was like, so why do you want to track your calories? She was like, well, I know that it's really good for me. And when I do track my calories, I feel really good. And, the best time I've been in the best shape of my life is when I'd track my calories, and I do feel better about it. I feel better about what I eat when I am tracking them. So I'm like, okay, so there's a lot of good there. Right? So we implemented the P2 strategy, and her power phrase was, if I catch myself not wanting to track my calories or subconsciously falling into old patterns, right? Then I will say out loud, I, Jamie, I like to say your name when you do it, track my calories because it empowers me, it makes me feel good, and it moves me closer towards my goals, right? So if I catch myself not wanting to track my calories, right? So she finds herself in that thing where she's, eating McDonald's or whatever the thing is that would normally make her say, oh, screw it, there's no point to this. If she catches herself doing that, then that's the pattern interrupt, the trigger that will immediately make her go and say, wait, let me say my power phrase. I track my calories, not just that, because that's not, but it has to be emotional and it has to be directly linked. And the emotional goes, it empowers me. It makes me feel good. And it moves me closer towards my goals, because that will be, that serves as a positive push forward for her brain to be like, okay, there's a reason for this, right? Okay, now I remember why I do this. And it gives her a pause long enough to make that decision. It makes it salient in her brain, overriding the negative of, oh, well, this is dumb. Oh, well, there's no point to this, or whatever other thing that she was thinking. And we go back to Johnny from a few slides ago, right? So again, he was the guy who was always saying like, oh, I'm going to work out. And then he would string together a few days of working out together. And then like he would fall off or whatever. So he said, if I begin to sabotage around my fitness goals, then I'll say out loud, I'm Johnny L. I get what I want out of life because I put in the work to get there. I deserve success. So again, this is something that was very important to him, right? He's an entrepreneur. He's someone who's worked to get very far in life. He comes from an immigrant family. He came from nothing. He built this life. So the thought process of I can't do this doesn't match up to that positive affirmation, right? I can't do this, but you've built 3 successful businesses. I can't do this, but you have a family that loves you and you've gone from being dirt poor to being rich and all this other stuff. So it's like, if you can remind yourself of that, then it's easy to go, oh yeah, that's bullshit. Of course I can go for a run. Of course I can eat healthy. Of course I can find something healthy on this menu when I don't, when all my friends are going out for eating or something, whatever the thing is, right? But it was important to him, directly linked to his goals. And it gave him that feeling, that immediate feeling of, oh yeah, this makes me feel good. It feels good to say it. All right. So now it's your turn. I told you we're going to take action at the end of this. So what I want you to do is we're going to take 2 minutes and I'm going to have you think about one habit that you want to change and one positive affirmation that would evoke a feeling of energy and empower you to want to work towards that ultimate goal. Right. So if the thing is around food and it's, I snack too much, what's a thing that will snap me out of that? Now, I don't want you to overthink this, right? I don't want you to try to make it perfect. This is just a jumping off point. That's why I'm only giving you 2 minutes. I want you to take action, right? So don't try to think, what's the perfect affirmation? What's the perfect wording? That's not what this is about. This is about something that evokes emotion for you. All right. It has to give you a feeling of like, yes, when I say this out loud, it will remind me to go, yeah, like I rock. So I'm going to start the timer right now. I'm going to give you 2 minutes. And by that time, I just want you to have the, if I blank, then I will say blank statement. All right. And I'll give you 2 minutes starting now. All right. So hopefully you have some sort of statement written. And again, this is just a jumping off thing. And you can use this in different areas of your life. You can have different statements around different things, or you can have one generalized statement. Again, like my client, Johnny, who was kind of more of just a power statement that's just kind of like, when I get negative, then I get positive. All right. So another bonus is to make it real. I'm huge on this. Again, anyone who's worked with me in the past or taken any of my courses, I'm big on writing it out, right? We want this stuff to be top of mind. Again, this is all about bringing the subconscious and making it conscious, right? You have these subconscious decisions, these subconscious things where you're like, oh, screw it or whatever. We want to take that and make it conscious. And then we want to take these conscious things, right? Like the affirmation that you're saying that I am so-and-so and I'm a badass. We want to make that the subconscious message. So we do both of these by writing it out, because the more we can see this over and over and over, the more real it becomes, right? The more I can read it. This is why vision boarding works, because it forces you to see these things over and over and over, right? Going back to the reticular activating system and everything else that we just talked about, the more we can see this stuff, the more salient and the more important it becomes. So don't just leave this in a notebook, right? If you just wrote it out, I love sticky notes for this reason. I have sticky notes all over my room, right? With all different affirmations, all different positive things. If I blank, then I blank, right? Set reminders in your phone, set it as a background screen for your phone. You can see I have a little, my phone background. I don't know if you can see this, but is an affirmation, right? So I use that so that every time I open my phone, I see a positive affirmation. I could have it just be a random picture of my dog or my nephew or something like that. But I want this to be the thing that plays in my head over and over and over. So when you write it down, write it somewhere where you'll be forced to see it and read it every day, right? And then ideally, maybe it's a place where that trigger thing might happen, right? So say your trigger or the negative thing that you're trying to break is around snacking. So your kitchen might be a great place to put it. Maybe it's a thing about your business, right? then maybe you put it on your laptop. Or if it's a thing about exercising, right? You're always like, oh, okay, I need to watch less Netflix and exercise more. Maybe you put a reminder in front of your TV or on your TV remote, so that when you have the opportunity to fall into that negative spiral, you see this serves as a trigger, and you use your statement to snap yourself out of it. All right. And I just want to recap here, just because we went over a lot today, right? So self-talk is happening, right? This is why I spent the whole almost first hour explaining this. Whether we realize this or not, whether we accept it or not, whether we address it or not, this stuff is happening. It is real. Again, there's scientific backing for decades and decades and decades, right? And now that when we understand that taking control of our self-talk becomes absolutely imperative if you want to control your life. Your self-talk is controlling you. It is dictating the decisions that you make. So if you allow that to happen without trying to actively control it in any way, you are at the whim of your subconscious, of your self-talk at all times, right? It controls your actions, your direct everyday actions via your subconscious. And the first step is to bring these actions to our conscious brain, right? When we don't think about it, when we just kind of let it slide by subconsciously, we don't have time to do anything about it. So we need to bring this to a conscious level. Because again, when we talk about this logically, you're like, oh yeah, that is pretty silly to think that I can never stick to a diet. Or it is pretty silly to think that, just because I missed one day at the gym that I should skip the whole week, or whatever the negative thought pattern is. But only when we have the time to think about that logically does it allow for us to be like, yeah. So we do this by creating specific pattern interrupts. And we will use these pattern interrupts whenever we catch ourselves just at the hint of sliding into a negative thought spiral. Okay. These are built into our lives. And again, going back to, this is not a magic wand. It's not like, again, right now, because this stuff happens subconsciously, we don't realize that it's happening. This is the tricky part. But having this top of mind, this is why putting a sticky notes or having the reminders on our phone is so important, because at first we won't notice, but the more we don't give up, the more you continue to make this a priority, the easier it will become. So then once you've trained your brain to catch the negative thought spirals so that you can pattern interrupt, right? Just like the vision board trains your brain to see positive things, we can train our brain to notice, oh, wait, that's a negative thought. Let me not, right? I do it a lot of times. I always used to catch myself saying things like, again, like I try or something like that. Now I say I will, right? So anytime God, and it happens consciously now. When I say I try, I'm going to try. Well, hold on, I'm going to, right? I catch myself doing it. Okay. Once we catch the negative thought, we replace it with the positive power phrase. It's made to replace the negative with the positive, again, consciously first, but over time, subconsciously. And this is a phrase that evokes emotion and is directly linked to a positive habit that we are trying to instill. And then once we have our interrupt phrase, we can write it out and place it visibly where we can see it, read it, and speak it multiple times per day. The more we see it, the more we read it, the more we make it real, the better that it's going to be. Repetition, repetition, repetition. Just like you wouldn't go to the gym once and be like, well, where's my muscles? And just like you wouldn't eat one salad and be like, where's my weight loss? And just like you wouldn't do one day of work and be like, where's my $1 million? You're not going to do this one time and have it catch on. What you need to do is commit to making it real to you. And again, that's why having it written out in a place where you can see forces you to do that. But just commit to practicing for a set amount of time, because this will allow you to make great change in your life. And that's it. We made it. All right. I hope this has been helpful for you. Again, if you're watching this, feel free to go back through the replay. I will send the replay to anyone who is watching this live and anyone who's watching the replay. If you got value out of this, there's a few next steps that you can take if you want to continue on this journey with me. My course, Mindset Shift, which is a 6-week course, is starting September 1st. This is a 6-week course where I go over many topics like this one, much more in depth, because it's a 6-week course rather than just a 1-hour masterclass. And just for participants in this course, again, anyone who attended live or who is watching the replay, I will be offering a steep discount. The full price of this course is going to be $997. $997. For anyone who attended this masterclass, you can participate in that course for $497. So that's half price. And then also to anyone who is listening or watching, if you are interested in applying to be a VIP one-on-one coaching client with me, you can email me to book a consultation call, because I am accepting 2 more coaching clients at the time of recording this. All right. I hope, again, that you enjoyed this. I hope that you got a lot of value out of it. And most of all, I hope that you take action with this. Again, all of this is for naught if you just put all this behind you and don't actually do it. You have to take the action, and only then will it really be something. And if you do that, then I'm happy, you'll be happy, and the world will be a better place. So thank you for coming, and have a great day.